Stephen, a 1-0 victory for your side, but again, that maybe doesn't tell the full story of those 90 minutes. A thoroughly deserved 3 points for your side.
I think so. I looked at the team lines ahead of the game, and they're quite young in a couple of positions. I expected us to have a dominant performance because of that, because we have a couple of older ones, but older ones who are early 20s. We're not, a vastly experienced side, but I just felt the first half was good. We created quite a lot of chances. I would like to see young Dom Thomas get reward for his good play. He puts so many good balls across the box. He beats his man so many times. So just little things like that we have to kind of sharpen up on. But when you don't get the goal, you can kind of, I suppose, a little bit of nervousness sets in. But we eventually got the goal. They put a lot of long balls into the box from set plays and stuff. Made it a little bit difficult and awkward for us. But I think over the piece, first half performance, we done enough to win the game. In the end, the game kind of fizzled out. There was no real tempo to it in the second half. There was no real fluency from us or from them. So a little bit scrappy. But about good habits and learning how to win games is what we're trying to do.
Was there a point during that first half you were beginning to think, oh God, this is like last week all over again, creating chance after chance, balls across the box, but nobody taking them?
It's probably been a story of our season in quite a lot of games, actually. I've came away from most games we've been involved in, and even though we've lost some games, I genuinely believe we could have won every game we've been involved in just by chances created. We do have creative players at the top end of the pitch. And it's the toughest thing in football is to get that final pass right. I think it separates the really top players from the rest. They can pick the pass out, or somebody gets in the end of it, makes a good run. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build everything as we go along. It does become frustrating because it is the same every week. We're watching the same game nearly every week, creating chances, beating our men, just not finishing things off. So somewhere along the line we will get a scoreline that hopefully will reflect the play.
You mentioned Hearts' threat came more from deeper balls. Were you quite satisfied that the way you played restricted them to that, and actually on Ben's, Brett Long's goal, very little real clear-cut efforts? Yeah,
I think they had one from a set play that kind of rebounded off. Someone went past the post. So, you have to learn how to win games different ways. You have to learn to play against different styles. And it's when you're so dominant in the game, it's concentration levels as well. So, that's what I take from Louis Lang tonight was terrific. I just thought his all-round game, his aggression, in which the manager's been on about, he has to be more aggressive. I thought his head of the ball, his organisation of the team, I thought he was very, very good alongside Luke Watts. So it was a little test towards the end, and you do get a little bit edgy because you think we should be further ahead. But over the piece, I think Hearts would be on the same camp as us, that we should have won the game a lot more.
The goal came from a set piece. It was a corner that was worked out, and Ross McLean takes advantage of somebody staying in and instead of pushing out. But it's a neat finish from him in the end.
It was. Ross looked a little bit rusty early on in the game. It was his first game back after his shoulder injury from the Kilmarnock Cup game in early December. So he's been out for quite a while. I thought it took him a little while to settle. He did show his attributes now and again throughout the game. So that's what you want your wide players to be doing, is getting involved and getting goals. He showed good composure to flick it over the goalkeeper in the end. It was going to take something probably a little bit scrappy. It was a scrappy kind of goal, because when you push and probe so much, you don't get opportunities. You just want something to go in for you. So we're just delighted, eventually it did. And
it's a big 4 or 5 weeks coming up for both the first team and the under-20s. There's fixtures all over the place. I think February's about 10 or 12 games for us to cover. But that's going to be a test for your side, isn't it? Because so many of your players are actually involved in the first team squad that it's going to really stretch your side, and some of these younger guys who've maybe not been playing so much recently are going to get their chance.
Well, it's been frustrating for quite a lot of the young players. Guys like Josh Moore and David Turnbull, who really haven't had a chance to show me what they can do. We've had a few first team players drop them down over the last few weeks, and I think they know ultimately the first team's the most important team. But we have 2 games next week, and Tuesday the first team have a game Tuesday night, so we'll be very young. We play Celtic next Friday. We'll be very young again, but it's a great test for them. It's a great test for me as well as a coach, to try and work out how to play against these sides and against these players. We do have a busy month. We've got a cup game coming up with more league games. I think with Rangers to come, a game that was postponed just after Christmas. So lots of football, but we have to keep maintaining that standard. The aim for these young players is to try and push into the first team. I've pointed out Kieran Kennedy and Chris Cadden to them earlier in the week that they have played well in the last couple of under-20s games. They got themselves into the first team at the weekend. So these games aren't meaningless. Don't waste any kind of games of football. That'll be the same message for the young players next week whenever they step in.
Stephen, thank you.
Cheers.